if I lost my job, what would I do? Just set up another self-employed model. The guy who opened Colombia could not believe that agents in the UK were employed, and he started laughing at me.
Keeps getting described as a multi-level marketing business. Mm-hmm. Does that piss you off?
People without experience, the risk of that is damaging the public's perception of the self-employed model. So we definitely know the leadership in branches probably needs some work.
What I find that's more required today in leadership is the approach of understanding, empathy, curiosity, and asking great questions.
Absolutely. In my view, the culture in some of those big businesses have to change if they want to avoid extinction.
So good or bad recruitment can either scale or destroy your agency business. Are you wasting hours on CVs, bad interviews, and paying huge recruitment fees? If so, there's a smarter way. Inside Talent is the Netflix of estate agency recruitment. They hire, train, and retain all under your brand for one simple monthly fee. So, podcast listeners, you're going to love this. Look out and make sure you lock this down. It's 10% off their yearly subscription when you contact the team at Inside Talent and quote #Showdown. Now, you need to check them out, don't you? www.insidetalent.com. Inside Talent, smarter hiring made simple. Welcome to Estate Agent Showdown. Verona and Adam, I can't believe you're here in Peterborough. I managed to get you up the A1 and down the A1 today on this beautiful sunny day. So thank you for coming and joining me this morning.
Pleasure.
So, are you ready?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? You don't know what's coming? You don't know
we
what's
are guinea
coming.
pigs today, so I'm really
you
not
are
sure.
a little bit, yeah. And you know, for anyone listening to this, it's the first episode's being filmed today. So thank you for giving up your time as well. So, first question. If there was only one estate agency model that was to survive, there's the corporate employed model, the self-employed model, which in your opinion would it be and why? Who would like to kick off?
Why don't you kick off, Adam?
I love the way you've done that.
That's why I was nudging under the desk for you to kick off.
I ignored you.
Well, obviously I'm going to say the self-employed model, clearly. I wouldn't have said that 5 or 6 years ago, 7, 8, 10 years ago, starting my career. It wasn't a thing, was it? So in 97 when I started, you know, it was about employed, it was about that safety and that security of a wage, you know, the days off in the week and, you know, being able to shut your computer at 6 o'clock in the evening or whatever it was. But yeah, I'm a convert over the last 6 years, as you'd expect. But I genuinely am. You know, I often say if I was to lose, and people have asked me this, if I lost my job or if I decided to leave EXP for any reason, what would I do? I'd just set up another self-employed model.
Would you?
Yeah, genuinely. Yeah, 100%. No question.
What was the tipping point for you? Because it is a big switch.
Yeah, it's probably, I mean, partly going to America and partly realising actually that when Colombia opened, I remember we opened Colombia like three and a half years ago.
Colombia.
Yeah, and it just, I don't know why that stuck in my mind, but they couldn't believe, the guy who opened Colombia could not believe that agents in the UK were employed. And he started laughing at me. And when I was explaining the model, he just couldn't get his head around it. I'm thinking, Colombia, of all the places in the world who are laughing at the UK for not being employed. And then you start looking at the rest of the world. We started opening more countries. And it was completely normal for a country to have self-employed agents. That's the norm. It's not the norm in the UK, Northern Europe, Scandinavia, and Ireland. They're the main areas where employed is the norm. Everywhere else, so we're the odd ones out. We must be doing something wrong in that respect. So that was kind of three years ago when we opened Colombia. It was kind of like the penny drop when all these countries have opened, and then Colombia are laughing at me. And they're laughing at our fees of 1% as well, by the way. You know, because they're charging 4.5% over there. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. So, and then seeing the agent success in the UK and showing that it can be done and it was working, and you know, lots of little tipping points. But I remember the Colombia discussion specifically.
Nice. What about yourself, Verona?
I mean, I'm also a proponent of self-employed, as you know.
Yeah.
But I guess in a slightly different way. Our model. I know this is not a pitch, but I can't answer this question. I can't answer this question fully without referring to our model. So our model is agents are self-employed, but we have a core central support team that support our franchise model, and now our reasonably recently launched fully self-employed, self-generation model. And our goal as a business is to provide choice for agents and choice for consumers. Okay. And we've got a range of options. All agents are self-employed, but some of them have more support than others through lead generation, through central support in marketing, L&D, etc. And I believe that not everybody, certainly through all of their career, can go from not to fully self-employed, not requiring support overnight. I think that happens over time. Okay. And therefore, what we're trying to create is something that provides a path for agents.
As if you would have in like a corporate ladder, exactly. There's a career path. You go from trainee right the way through to director MD.
Exactly.
Same sort of thing.
But within a self-employed model.
Yeah.
So it's a slight change to what Adam says, but I totally agree. Look, there's no question that over the years, let's be honest about it, the corporates and a lot of the independents have paved the way for some of the most successful
100%.
Self-employed agents today.
Absolutely.
There is a place for them. And I'm not corporates and independents are bad and self-employed are good. I think there's a place for them. I think this self-employed model is growing pace and it will overtake at some point in the future.
No, I can see that. I mean, from just flipping back to you on that question, Adam, and how many agents did you bring into the UK EXP model just last year in 2024?
I should know that, shouldn't I?
But just roughly.
Yeah. We had about 100. We had about
so many. That's the problem.
Yeah. We had. I don't really follow the numbers, but I kind of do.
Come on, you're an American company.
No, I
That's
do.
a lie.
Okay, I do.
That's a complete lie.
So we had about net 100 agents every 8 months. So I think last year was like we added 140, 150, 160 agents, something like that, in 2024. I'm
intrigued to know because I've got a small group of companies and culture and sort of following process and structure. It's hard just with like 35, 40 people. How the hell do you scale and keep those standards really high when you're onboarding so many agents?
We've got some pretty robust processes in place from an onboarding point of view. We mandate that agents do certain things before we give them access to the CRM, for example, which gives them access to the portals, which is ultimately what they want.
Right.
They want to list properties. So we mandate there's 8, it doesn't sound much, but there's 8 hours of training, all video training, and we monitor that they do that. And then we give them that access. It's all lead gen training, nothing else. We don't talk about EXP. We don't talk about the other aspects of EXP, the recruitment side of it. It's all lead gen so that we hopefully are setting them up for success. The whole sponsoring model touched on the recruitment side of it, every agent has a sponsor. And so I think that works actually really well because the sponsor is incentivized financially to help that person succeed. So therefore the pressure isn't on me or my team to help that person succeed. The pressure is on the sponsor or there's not the pressure, but there's an incentive for them to help that person succeed. And then we use things like we've got something called Workplace, which is Facebook for workers. That's probably been one of the key elements of our success is that all the information is on there, all videos we record, all the training we've ever done in the past, all the events, other agent podcasts, internal podcasts that we've done, everything goes on Workplace. It's like an encyclopedia of everything from getting your first instruction to how do you invoice EXP for your commission kind of thing. And so that's an encyclopedia for agents just to tap into. So it's allowed us to scale without really having that many people. There's 20 of us in the team, and we're kind of doing quite a lot. We're doing 2,000 instructions plus a month now.
Wow.
And there's 20 people in the team employed. So very lean model in that respect.
I think though, to answer your question more fully, that's brilliant from an onboarding point of view because listen, we share the same challenges within the self-employed community. Once they're on board and once they're entrepreneurs and running their own businesses, everybody feels like their version of what good looks like is the correct one.
Absolutely.
And then you end up with 200 or 300 or 700 versions of my way is best.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there aren't 700 versions of what best looks like. And I think that is the challenge, is more on an ongoing basis.
Is there accountability around all of that? Is there do you have brand guidelines or I assume
not in the fully self-employed?
No.
Because the brand is the agent.
Individual.
Yeah, the brand is
the agent, but they have to comply with certain brand standards of EXP because the portals insist on it actually more than we do.
So you're trying to give as much freedom as you can.
Yeah.
But you've got to protect.
And it's very, there's people in EXP that I've never met before. They've been with us for 4 years. They're icon agents, as we call them, and I've still never met them. There's a girl up in South Manchester called Olivia Kemp. She won't watch this. She has no interest in EXP, but she makes an absolute shed ton of money, and she never comes to an. I often say that we're an events company that happens to do real estate. That Keller Williams have said they're a training company that happens to do real estate. I think we're an events company that happens to do real estate, and I think events are really important. Going around meeting agents, and those agents who want to attend will attend, and those who don't, and that's kind of how you keep them, in my opinion, accountable. Because they come to those events, and those who aren't interested don't bother coming, and they're normally it's normally the people that are really good that come to the events actually. The ones that are struggling don't, because they don't see the value in it.
It's an interesting mindset.
Well, Victoria Pendleton, who's one of our ambassadors, she talked about, we did a podcast with her the other day.
You're allowed to name drop, by the way. That's fine.
Yeah, of course.
As long as you tag her in.
She did. She talked about fixed mindset versus growth mindset.
Yeah.
Fixed mindset being very dangerous, and you get caught up if you've got a fixed mindset. Instead, a growth mindset that how she was taught when she was doing her Olympics was learning from others and being in the right rooms.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we see the most successful agents come to every event.
Interesting though, isn't it, when you see that and you see people not coming and they're clearly struggling? Because what's this kind of success rate, if you don't mind me asking, in the first, I don't know, say 2 years? I suppose that's a realistic kind of benchmark. A year one is tough, I think, for any agent. Whether you're going into an employed role or self-employed role, it's a lot to take on board.
Yeah.
Do you have a success rate that you can share with my audience?
Go on, Verona, you can share one.
From our perspective, or from that? I mean, our model is really
quite different.
It's
quite different. You've got a lot more, it feels like a bit more hands-on.
So in our franchise model, it definitely is. Yeah. So we still generate 90% of the valuation opportunities for our franchise opportunity.
Wow.
For our franchises.
That's a massive, from the success rate point of view.
For sure.
Agents that are used to getting leads, going into this model, you're helping them with that.
Exactly. Now, in our associate model, we don't.
Okay.
So it's much more akin to the EXP type where it's all self-generation. Yeah. So I'm not 2 years into that, so I can't give you my success rate on that. In our franchise model, it's pretty high. Yeah. We have a very, very good retention rate. We've got franchise owners who've been with us for 7-8 years.
Yeah, I've met a few.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and that is a combination of things. It's not just about the lead gen, it's about the support. It's they get the flexibility of running their own business, but with the wraparound support. But it's also largely, and a big part of it, and I can't underestimate this, it's the culture. We have a phenomenal culture in our business, and that keeps people.
How do you get that culture in your business? And Adam, I'll ask you the same question in a second, because I can see there's two different cultures, but you're definitely building cultures. So what's your ethos?
I mean, there's not one silver bullet, right? No. And first of all, the culture is only a combination of all the people that contribute to the outcome and the output of a business. Yeah. I can talk to the last 3 years because that's as long as I've been there. When I joined, we didn't have a really clear strategy. No. The culture was pretty good, I'll be honest. It was one of the reasons that attracted me, because changing the performance of a business is much more difficult. Yeah. Sorry, much easier. Yeah. The change in the culture is much more difficult. Game. Absolutely. Yeah. And I was prepared to play the long game, and we are playing the long game, but the culture was pretty good, but we then created a strategy that aligned everybody on a 5-year plan.
Did you find that ruffled quite a few feathers in the beginning? Because when you change strategy, sometimes that can...
Well, I could have done. Had I implemented my strategy, then I could have done. What I did was we involved over 70 people from across all parts of the business in little workshops. What makes you Opa special? Why do you work here? What keeps you here? What could we do better? And we distill that down into a strategy which is on one slide, and we're clear about our purpose, our mission, our values as a business, and we talk about it all the time. We make decisions against that strategy. Recently, we've just done divisional roadshows around the country, and I've gone and done an update at the half year on how we're performing as a business. I show the slide that our strategy sits on. We talk about it and all the things that we are making decisions on based on what our strategy is.
You've got so I'm going to come to you in a minute, Adam, don't you worry about the success rate. I haven't forgotten. But the key for me, like one of the things I find, I go back to Countrywide when they tried to change their model.
Yeah.
And they had fixed fees, low fixed fees, percentage fees, upfront fees for marketing and so on and so forth. It just looked very confusing from the outside.
Yeah.
How have you managed that process? Because I can imagine that's quite a challenge.
So we have been in the fixed fee space forever, long time. And there was a point in time that we used to follow what Purple Bricks did. There was a point, if they changed their fees, we adjusted our fees accordingly. Another big decision I made was we are not following anybody else. We are clearing our own path, and we're going to be super clear about what that looks like, and whatever happens outside. Yes, of course, you're going to be mindful of what's going on in your industry, but you're not going to copy and paste it. So once we made that decision, it freed us of what anybody else was doing. Yeah. So we now make all of our decisions based on a number of factors. We start with the data. We have really, really good data. We're very rich with all of our history. Whenever we make a price change, how we measure the impact of that. Whenever we provide discount codes, how we measure the impact of that. We start with the data, but then we overlay the data with feedback from the field, and we get it. We seek it and we get it. I mean, they tell us if we don't get things right. Okay. But we also then measure
so feedback from clients.
Everybody, from our clients via the agent, via the DFDs, and also we talk to them ourselves. Yeah. So we get a lot of feedback, quantitative and qualitative, and we then adjust accordingly. We don't bet the farm. We don't, go big on something overnight and say, right, we're going to do that tomorrow, and we just do it and we implement it and we just tell the field to deal with it. That's not how we operate, because we cannot be successful if our franchise businesses are not successful. And if we just put another grand on all of our fees, their conversion rate in lounge would go down. We know this because we've measured it. Yeah. And we do a lot of analysis that helps us make decisions carefully, but gradually, and we do it in the right way. And then we measure them. And if we've got it wrong, sometimes, we haven't often got it wrong, we say we got that wrong, we'll wheel it back. But it is using data, but also listening to the people around you and understanding what's happening in the lounge with the customer.
So you think in the lounge, the clients have those options, and it's a much easier conversation or even a clearer conversation from what you're saying for your agents to have? Exactly,
because we offer our 3 fixed
Are they allowed to go
packages.
Off of those things, or is it very much these are the options?
So I mentioned that we want to provide choice for customers as well as agents. Yeah. Now, some of our agents really focus on Ultimate, which is our top package. It's a premium package because they believe that that's the best opportunity to sell and to achieve the best price for the consumers, which it absolutely is. So we've got 3 packages, but some of them say to their consumers, I only offer this one because I believe that's the best package. They can offer no sale, no fee as well. So if they want to, no sale, no fee, but they have a core, a premium and an Ultimate package, and the customer can pay today or they can pay later in 10 months' time or whenever the property sells or completes, whichever is first. So we offer a wide range of products. So we very carefully measure the penetration of all of those, the sales rate of all of those, the completion rates of all of those, and all of those levers make up our business.
So because of all the data and the amount of research you're doing with customers and the feedback, am I right in thinking you're looking for growth, but I suppose more organic growth of your business? So
our growth, we've grown in the last 3 years over 20% revenue year on year on year. And as in, we've grown over the last 2 years over 20%, and this year our growth plan is 33%. So it is organic in terms of we haven't acquired any businesses. We have increased our headcount, but we've increased our headcount in the last 12 months by about 50 agents in field. But unlike the EXP model or associate model, where you can bring as many people into an area as possible, it's geographically constrained because it's a franchise within a postcode area.
So you've got that ability to say, this is my patch.
Absolutely. Okay. But we also have to make sure that when the franchise businesses are operating there, that they're being successful as well and they're generating enough revenue. And that's a combination of the leads that we offer them, the leads that they're generating for themselves, the conversion rate in lounge, their ancillary sales, all the obvious things, mortgages, legal services, auctions, and also our support of them to help them improve their processes, improve what they're doing. And in the early stages, we do offer them financial support to get them into a place where they're...
Really?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big commitment. Big commitment. Yeah. And I've seen more of that in the last 12 months.
So you've definitely seen us grow in the last 12 months. We've
and is it because of that, would you say?
We've always done that. That's always been a part of our model. Wow. Yeah. It's always been part of our model. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And just going back to success rate, I couldn't wait to get back to you as well there, Adam. But I think I'm a huge admirer of what you've both done. And Adam, I remember Barry Culver reached out to me it must have been 2018 or something, when I was looking at Keller Williams. And I just exchanged a couple of messages, quite polite. It was one of those, no, you're okay, mate. And now I look at you and I think, wow, you've done a great job. But it keeps getting described as a multi-level marketing business. Mm-hmm. Does that piss you off? Because or is it not? What is it?
It is. It's an MLM, yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't piss me off at all. No, that's the model. It's the model.
But why do people look at that in such a negative way?
Because they say it's.
I'm not including myself in that.
No. Well, I mean, partly because we've grown so quickly. So that, initially 6 years ago there was a dismissiveness of this. That'll never work. What a joke. I mean, remember the initial press release in Property Industry Eye, and the usual suspects said, "Let's put a pin in this and see where it is in 12 months' time." And I've.
Bet you know.
You've referred to that once or twice over
I have done.
Years,
and I will continue to
seen that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've screenshotted that a couple of times. Yeah,
draw motivation from all things, can't you? But that's quite a
exactly.
Quite a nice point to prove.
I mean, there was a lot of people that said it's a joke, it's never going to work, and then of course, as it does work, people then want to pick holes in it and say, "Oh, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's a pyramid scheme," and that's fine. People can have their opinion, and
I loved your picture in front of the pyramid, by the way.
Yes,
that's brilliant.
You do beat things off with comedy and humour, and you're quite light-hearted, but. Did any of those things really impact the way people in the organisation felt about being a part of that?
No, because I think we own it.
I think straight off the bat, yep, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's an
MLM. It's not negative, actually, if you work it around in the right way.
Yeah, if you work it in the right way. I think when it becomes negative, potentially negative, is when you just allow anyone to join with no qualification, no training, no mentoring.
Or experience, is that right?
So rather than we only ask for experienced agents, but I think there is a way to do self-employed agency with inexperienced agents, and that's qualification, proper training, and proper mentoring.
Okay.
So I think then, but the risk is, for me, in my opinion, and has been for the last 6 years and remains so, is that if you open it up to become a true MLM and nothing else, then you get lots of network marketers joining the business who then. They go and recruit another network marketer. They go and recruit another network marketer. And then you just got bums on seats and anyone who can fog a mirror.
Agent count,
no.
Head count is vanity.
Yeah, exactly. And look, in America, they allow people to join because they've got licensing over there.
Did I read a stat in America? It's like 74% of brokers didn't sell one property last year. Or is that just bullshit?
Something like that. I think it even might be higher than that, actually. But there's definitely the Pareto 80-20 rule of, over there. But again, they allow people to join because they do have the licensing, which is essentially a qualification. Now, in the early days of EXP in America, Glenn only went after experienced agents, ironically. But now obviously you can open that up. You can't, for me, mentoring is the most important thing. I remember the first time I went on a valuation, my old boss Ian mentored me on that valuation and the next few valuations after that. And that transfer of trust from Ian, 20 years in the business, to say to the customer, 52 high over way. I remember the first evaluation I ever did with Ian, and that transfer of trust was Ian saying, Adam's been with us for 6 months, he's a really good guy, I'm going to be looking after him this whole time whilst evaluating, listing and selling the property, that kind of thing. So I think you can't have mentors if you don't have enough agents that are experienced to be mentors. So my whole vision has been, let's grow it to a point where we've got enough agents, experienced agents, to then have a proportion of agents who can be mentors.
So is that happening? Is that happening, or is that a vision still?
I think I did a straw poll about 2 or 3 years ago of how many agents would be prepared to put their hands up to be a mentor, and it was about 10%.
Okay.
I think a nice number of mentors would be 100 people. So we need 1,000 agents in order to have a mentoring program that's worthwhile rolling out and
bringing
effective.
People without experience into the business.
Yeah, but even then, I would have high barriers to entry.
Okay.
They'd have to pay more money to join. They'd have to pay away more of their commission for the first 6 deals, 10 deals, whatever it is. I mean, the cogs have been turning in my head for a few years now on this, but it's probably coming. We're 1,000 agents this time next year, probably. I'd imagine maybe the end of 2026 actually. But so that kind of will probably be a point when we'll have to make that decision. But again, Verona talks about culture, and I will talk to the agents about that. I'll talk to the existing agent, community and say, do we want this? Do you guys want this? Are you happy for this to happen?
Yeah.
Because we've been very strict on those rules of experienced agents only over the last 5-6 years. I've turned down probably over 1,000 people now.
Wow.
In that period of time. So, we could be at 2,000 agents right now, but to
everyone's
the
got to start somewhere as well, haven't they?
They have.
Of course.
And actually, I think as you're opening up the opportunity to earn more commission and be in control of your hours, your flexibility, who you work with, how you operate, there's a lot more freedom now in those roles, obviously. So it can attract higher caliber people.
And I think, going back to your point, Adam, I absolutely understand kind of your vision for that, but there's still so many today, high street agents, corporate agents, who would have a much better living, a much better quality of life if they were willing to take that leap. So actually, it's not like we've exhausted that community yet.
The existing
right?
field.
Exactly.
With some experience.
Yeah, exactly. And they're more likely to be successful from the get-go.
Thousands of them, yeah.
And the people without experience or form, for want of a better word, does come with an element of risk, because they may make it, they may not. And then the risk of that is damaging the public's perception of the self-employed model. And that, for me, that's one thing that I worry about, is that the trust element, because we all know that a lot of consumers choose a corporate or an independent or high street brand because if something goes wrong, because that's customer thinking risk, if something goes wrong, I know I can go there to complain or escalate or get a response. Whereas if you don't have that branch, then they're more concerned about it. So trust is so important. And and I think we're building trust in self-employed agents, not getting away from the fact that that's because they hold their hand from the start right to the end. Whereas in a branch, it's obviously more segmented. So I think that trust is something we all need to think about as we evolve the self-employed space.
I agree. And that's what I'm very nervous about. I'm very nervous about that whole sort of rolling out the inexperience. And you talk about success, our churn last year was less than 30%. It's about 28 point something percent.
What was it like compared to the previous year?
About the same. It's about, about a third are, struggle and leave.
Yeah.
And which actually is better than most corporate churn rates.
I was going to say,
when you think it's a self-employed model, you think
I don't think people really understand how challenging agency can be.
Yeah,
actually,
exactly.
In many respects,
probably about a third sit in the middle.
Yeah.
That they're very happy to not be working for the man or working in an office, and they're very happy to earn 50, 60K a year.
Yeah.
And just be happy like that way. And then there's a third who just go and absolutely kill it. Typically, what I see. So, with that in mind, with an inexperienced agent, now you'll have other self-employed models who say, well, we allow inexperienced agents to join and look at this person who's being successful. And I say, well, what about the other 19 who have not been successful?
Well, that's what I think the industry look at,
5%.
because there's a lot of people that you see online, and there's the ones that aren't online talking about their struggles. And do self-employed agents generally earn more money, or is it just the top 20%, like you've just not kind of said, but that principle?
Our average is, the last time, we haven't done this research for a couple of years, but the average a couple of years ago was 59,000.
Okay.
So
and
it's about the same.
Is that gross earning or so their turnover?
That was their banking.
Their banking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roughly. So that was, that's pretty much what an average estate agent would earn on the high street. But the difference is they've only got to sell 3 houses a month for that, 2 to 3 houses a month for that.
But there's this in-betweeny kind of place where obviously in the employed role you get a high base salary, company car,
security,
or
what you perceive to be security.
Well, yeah, and when times get tough, that security disappears, doesn't it? So, do you think it's a fair comparison, or is it just a completely different model in terms of earning potential? Because in a regular estate agent corporate brand, which has been established for 10, 15, 20 years, you can pick up a good salary there. You can earn pretty good money there and not really have to do much more than create a few valuations, convert some viewings, make a few sales.
Depends who your boss is though, doesn't it?
Well, it does, doesn't it?
And that's a massive factor.
Yeah.
It genuinely is a big factor.
Go on, tell me more about that.
Well, as you know, I am a member of Women in Estate Agency, in case you
I do.
Been living under a rock for the last 3 years.
I've been to the last 2 years
Of course, I know
events,
you do.
and I think they're probably the best events I've been to in the industry. And
we get that a lot, but thank you. But I have a very privileged eye into the viewpoints of over 4,500 women, because they post and discuss their challenges in the group. Yeah. And quite often we hear about the challenges are not necessarily our own belief or our confidence level. It's about the fact that we're constantly knocked down by the branch manager, and the fact that they're told that they're not good enough and they'll never be any better. And it is quite frightening, some of the stories.
Is that more corporate or independent?
It's difficult to put it in a box. What's because my feel is that it's more of the big businesses. Yes, driven. Absolutely. Yeah. Number driven.
KPIs, hit your target, when you're out.
Yeah, and you hear some of the words that they use, and it rings the bells of you've heard it 100 times before, right?
Yeah.
So we definitely know the leadership in branches probably needs some work, needs some development.
Very nicely put, Verona.
I try to be kind, because I genuinely don't think people come to work to do a bad job. I don't think they do.
I've found women in the businesses that I've worked in to probably be better leaders than the men, and I'm being that's probably.
I mean, it's a very general statement.
What I mean by that, in my own personal experience, is the guys given 1 or 2 areas of focus, go and get the job done.
Yeah.
And this is general, so don't shoot me down here. Not on my own podcast, but what I find that's more required today in leadership is the approach of understanding, empathy, curiosity, and asking great questions.
Absolutely.
Most people that are asked great questions are more revealing about themselves, their mindset, and you can then help them to move forward. Yeah. Whilst going back to that old leadership style where the group are complaining and disgust, it provokes a lot of, why wouldn't you change that now? Why is that change? But if it does start to change in the corporate world, is that more of a threat to both your models?
Going back to what I said earlier about culture, I think culture is really difficult to change. And I think that takes a long time. And in my view, the culture in some of those big businesses have to change if they want to avoid extinction. Honestly,
it's that clear, isn't
I
it?
genuinely feel that way. Because I feel that people, and I don't just mean women now, but I think people can see there are more options. Yeah. There are more choices for me. There is more empathy. There is more ability to be vulnerable. Yeah. There's more authenticity in everything that we do today than 20 years ago. And, frankly, it's not the boys' club that it used to be. No. We've still got a way to go, but it used to be very clearly an all-boys club. And our industry is moving, it's progressing, it's evolving. And I think of some of the businesses that I see today still continue to operate in the way they have for the last 20 to 30 years, very successfully, I might add, then I do think that there is a risk to those models.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's just a lack of awareness or a lack of overall leadership? Because the top-down, bottom-up approach.
I think there's a number of reasons. There's leadership; it plays a pivotal part, absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's success. So therefore, if it's not broken, why should we fix it? So there's a worry that if they change, then that could affect the bottom line. In my experience, no business improving the culture has ever affected the bottom line negatively. So I think there's a number of reasons, and given everything that I've said, I think there is a place for those type of businesses if they evolve to a place that is a more modern world and accepts and empowers people to be successful. Because if they don't, people will find a way to do that alone.
Very, very interesting. How do you feel about that?
I think a lot of companies so I think culture, I would have agreed with Verona that culture is very difficult to change. Actually, I've just been through that with, we had a leadership change, if you want to call it that, back in the summer last year at International. And that's when I started in the role of looking after EMEA, and Glenn Sanford, who's the founder of EXP, stepped into the international lead role. And he's going to kill me if he watches this podcast, because there's a book that I bought because his recommendation, which was about rapid culture change. It's like 8 pages long. Like, it's the shortest book ever.
What's it called?
I can't remember. That's my point.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
We'll get it after, and I'll pop it on the.
I read through that. It's not probably about 20 pages, but it's very, very short. It's like a leaflet sort of book. Mm-hmm. And he's completely changed the culture at International in the space of about 3 months, from September to when I started in EMEA.
In what way?
breaking stuff, not worrying about getting stuff wrong, being disruptive within our own environment. So getting shit done, not having reporting lines. So I don't have reporting lines.
American though.
Yeah. But we don't have reporting lines. So we do have reporting lines officially, but Glenn's not one to say, like if I report into Felix, then I don't need to ask Felix for permission to go and do something. I'll just go and get it done. Right. Now, previously in the old world, that was, you cannot do that. No. You cannot do that. And so Glenn's changed that.
So they've released a bit of that control.
Released complete control. It's all self-management. There's very few meetings.
I'm guessing with that empowerment and that comes accountability. So you're accountable for the outcome.
Yeah. If I decide something at EMEA, if I decide to implement something in the EMEA circle, as we call it, so I'm the EMEA circle lead. Right. So that's my circle. No one can encroach my circle.
It's very American.
Yeah.
We love the Americans, by the way.
But yeah. I mean, I've learned a lot.
Damage limitation.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
You can learn a lot from them. But,
you bloody can. Certainly mindset-wise, that's for sure.
Mindset-wise, the culture's completely changed. And so there are elements where we're doing stuff with me and, I don't know, Gabby in America are both doing the same thing, and we're overlapping and we're stepping on each other's toes. But Glenn would rather that than having to wait for someone to give authority, to give approval. It
slows you down.
It slows you down.
Course.
And then me and Gabby sit there and
go...
You
stop asking for approval, then you stop creating ideas, right?
Yeah, you just plod along.
There are certain things you need to ask. I can't go and spend $1 million tomorrow.
Well, I was going to say, Adam, we're going to be inviting you out on the next London night out in the Admiral Duncan if you're not careful. But but from a cultural perspective, looking at... So from an outside looking in, I think what you've both done really well is you've galvanised your cultures independently in terms of, it almost feels to Adam like you're the driver of the culture in the UK, obviously, but it doesn't feel like it's too Americanized. And I don't mean that with disrespect. It does feel quite authentic about the way that you've operated that. How have you kind of shielded yourself a little bit around that? Because that must have been quite tricky, especially if you were more rigid.
Yeah, that was when Barry Pulver got in touch with you and got in touch with me as well. That was one of the things, because I said no to start with. And then one of the things that when we started... He
obviously liked you more because I said no and I didn't get any other messages. So,
didn't you?
He changed his mind, didn't he?
So, yeah, I changed my mind, yeah. I was doing consultancy work and I hated it. But no, what two of my stipulations was we drop all American words. So that was one of my conditions. Was,
language is so
we
important.
don't use the word brokerage, we don't use the word real estate. And I know I've used it here a couple of times because I have to change my language now when I'm talking to different people. And
you do now, mate. You're everywhere.
Which is difficult. But so licensing, brokerage, real estate, all of this nonsense goes. And when I went to America for the very first time, they wanted me to have a picture in front of the EXP Realty logo, and I refused. And they said, "What? You're not even going to have a..." I'm not going to do an accent, but you won't even stand in front of the Realty logo.
Please do it. Come on.
It's very good. I mean, I'll be honest, it's very good.
You can't say that and not do it.
No.
Please, look at that camera. This is a great clip. Come on. Adam's going to do his Americanized accent.
You can't stand in front of that EXP Realty logo. And I was like... No, I'm not doing it. I will not stand in front of that logo.
Do they look at the British as like, God, Jesus Christ? They
look at me as being quite difficult, I think.
Difficult.
But
Stubborn,
yeah, difficult. But I think the numbers, whoever just said, one of you two about accountability, my numbers have proven that I don't need to be managed. I don't need to be directed. I can make my own decisions on that kind
outcome
of thing.
Rather than... output.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Glenn's always been of that way. And so Glenn and Jason, the guy who hired me originally, they just let me get on with it. The UK was the guinea pig for the rest of the world. I gave them kind of very specific conditions about how I wanted it to work and operate. And they went, yeah, go for it. We don't know. What do we know about the UK marketplace? And so, but culturally, what I learned from Glenn specifically and Jason actually was their accessibility.
Yeah.
They are so accessible, it's ridiculous. Glenn will go to an EXP Con, which is the conference in Miami or Vegas or wherever it is, and he'll walk around the room and there's 5,000 people there, 6,000 people, all wanting a piece. Glenn's like a celebrity over there. And he's introverted. He's an introverted man. He's very shy. And yet he still puts himself out there.
Yeah.
And he'll talk to everybody. He'll have photos. People want photos with him all the time. And now I don't get that sort of attention. I wish I did. But the accessibility, I think, is really important. And I would message Glenn occasionally 3 or 4 years ago. And I mean, I work with Glenn every day now, so I don't need to, hopefully get a response from him. But he would always respond. One of the examples with Ben Moore and Scott Gunn did a podcast a few years ago, and they texted me and said, one of them texted me and said, "Do you think Glenn will come on the podcast?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd imagine so. Just send him a message." "Oh, we can't send him a message. Really? We can't send a billionaire a message to come on our podcast?" I said, "Well, he'll reply. I guarantee he'll reply."
Nice.
And they did, and he did. And he went on their podcast, and it was little things like that kind of helped me to learn that you can't be, a CEO that's above everybody or perceives themselves to be above everybody. You have to be in amongst it. And
Yep.
as Verona said, asking questions, learning what the pain points are so that you can implement strategies and to help the business and help the agents, basically.
Just on that, because I don't think there's any role that's easy. And that's just a myth. I mean, there's no easy money out there, guys.
I agree.
I'm just telling you that for sure. I have so many nights where I lay awake thinking about decisions, big decisions in a very small organization in comparison to the two. And I take that responsibility and you kind of roll with it. But at times you get those things wrong, and at times you look back and reflect, and you can't give yourself too much of a hard time about what goes on in the past. But are there past big mistakes that you've made really forged your way sort of forward into your roles to take you to the place where you are today, that have really kind of, if you look back now and went, that was a pivotal moment for me? What was that moment? What did you do, and how has it changed you?
I can definitely think of one, there's many, but I can think of one that has been pivotal. It happened quite a few years ago, actually. So I started at Marks & Spencer. My leadership journey started there. I'd worked my way up to be a senior commercial manager in Marble Arch, which is the flagship store. And when you've been a manager in that store, there's a certain kind of kudos, but also people who haven't been there, are irritated by that as well. And there was definitely no question. This is in my late 20s, so a little bit of ego because I'd done that. I was then appointed to my next job, which was the deputy manager of the number 2 store in Kingston. And they just had a big development. So there's 2 big stores, and the manager of the store was female. And I had come from Marble Arch, and I wanted to step into that role and demonstrate to her that I've got this, I know what I'm doing, I'm confident, and I was backing myself.
Yeah, proving a point.
Yeah, what I failed to do was acknowledge that she felt maybe a little bit of a threat that I was coming in from Marble Arch. She'd never been in Marble Arch. And I think what I didn't do was I didn't integrate myself with vulnerability. And I came as very confident and very cocky. And for the first 3 months, she made my life hell. And at the time I was like, I don't understand it. Does she think I'm not good enough? Yeah. And she was the boss, right? And she was running rings around me. I was really unhappy, and some of it was just adjustment to a new store, but some of it was she was deliberately making me feel uncomfortable. Yeah. So one day I said, let's go for a glass of wine. I need to have a chat. And I was really vulnerable with her then, and I said, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know what's happened. And she explained to me how she felt, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks that I had not been vulnerable, and I'd not been honest and shared with her some of my nervousness, because I was also nervous.
But that wasn't encouraged in many corporate environments.
It definitely was not. Definitely was not. But the point is, for me, that hit me so hard that from that moment on, I changed how I interact with everybody. So I had enough emotional intelligence to be able to realize what I'd done wrong and what I was never going to repeat again. And in every single opportunity, I have opened up and I've led with empathy and with vulnerability ever since. Yeah. So that's been genuinely a turning point in my leadership career.
It does feel to me, having known you only a few years, but that feels more natural.
Very, yeah.
To you?
Yeah. It's who I am. Yeah. It's genuinely who I am. So the other one
of you would have felt you'd have lost a lot more energy being that person.
It's funny because in my early years at M&S, I was told that if I wanted to be as successful as the men, I needed to work harder, work longer, be better. So I dialed up my mail, and I think I got into that kind of, almost aggressive leadership style. Yeah. And I think that then carried into that. And then I realized, you know what? I'm actually a better person, a better leader when I am more vulnerable, more authentic, and people connect with you so much more.
This kind of takes me back to female estate agents. And my wife in particular, I'd shout out to her, but she asks great questions. She's very vulnerable, and I struggle with it. I still struggle with it now, and I think not in so much the corporate sense, because I'm not working for anybody. That's probably one of my problems, I think, because I feel like a bit of a loose cannon at times. But I think that vulnerability connects you, doesn't it?
Do you know what's really interesting to me is the difference? I think one of the biggest differences between men and women, and no, there's generalizations, as I referred to earlier, and there's always edge cases.
Of course there is.
But generally speaking, women have so much less ego, and they're much more willing to not know the answer to a question. I'm 3 years into this business, and there's not a week that goes by that I don't ask a question that I don't know the answer to, that I can be more than happy to say, I know I should know this, or can you just tell me where I can find this information? I know it's in the hub somewhere, and I've been here 3 years. I don't know where to find it. I have no problem, or even bigger questions. Should we make this strategic decision? Yeah. Should we? What do you think, guys? I have no problem asking questions because I have no ego to be worried about being, dented. And I think generally speaking, men feel like they should know the answer to all the questions or the solutions to all the problems. And therefore they miss out on that opportunity to connect with people on a much more vulnerable level.
That's, very powerful. For anyone listening, that's a real mindset shift or hack, if you want to call it that. But the power of vulnerability, I think there's a Brené Brown TED talk on that. And it's quite empowering, actually. And even for us guys, Adam, you probably relate to me maybe a bit more on this subject, that us guys have probably who've worked in a estate agency for how long now for you?
97, 20,
so same sort of time. It was all geared around ego. Yeah. It was all geared around not talking. It was all geared around bullshit. It was all geared around, if you work your way up, it's all on your numbers. It's your sales results. It's all of that sort of stuff. So it's very hard for a lot of people, guys, especially to unpack that and decondition those things. But what are your thoughts on
that? I think I'm vulnerable is probably a strong word, but I certainly go around asking questions and try and relate to people. My mum always used to say to me, you should seek it, you should have an opinion, you should seek feedback, but then you have the final decision. Yeah, nice. You should make the final decision. So I've kind of always tried to do that. My team will say that that's not true. But
just clip this bit on there, and then we'll send it to the guys at EXP.
Yeah. But I'll always go and seek advice from Olivia and Tori, who have worked with me for 15 years now. They were at Hatched with me, and they've come to EXP with me as well. And so, we work very closely together, and I trust them and they trust me. And they were 19 when they started with me at Hatched. They were young girls, and they've flourished into amazing people now, and really good at their jobs.
Stuck with you along the journey.
Yeah. So hopefully, I do something right because but they're not the only two. We've got Lauren and Kyla and a few others that have joined us from the old days. And so I've put the band back together basically. But
nice.
I use that expression too. I've got my band back together.
Yeah. Well, you always do, don't you? Because you trust those people implicitly, and they trust you. And
it's very hard to build that working relationship. Yeah, where you can literally have each other's backs.
And recruitment, I find, is so hard. Recruitment of finding key people in your team, and everybody has a interview persona. When you bring them into your environment and you find out that actually they're not at all what they purported to be, that's like a shocker. I find that really difficult. So when you've got that trust with someone, it's much better. Yeah.
100%. It's felt as well, isn't it? It really is felt. Just going to come on to a big subject at the moment. Sorry,
I have to say, you haven't asked Adam about his pivotal point, and I'd like to know.
Sugar, well reminded, Verona.
He thought he was off the hook there, wasn't he?
He did slip out of that quite nicely.
He did.
Adam's got a very good knack of that.
I was trying to think of mistakes that I've made, but of course I've not made any.
Here's the vulnerability. Here's the vulnerability.
There's the vulnerability. But when was it, and what was it?
No, I would say it felt like a mistake at the time. I don't know, I'm kind of dodging the question a little bit, but I don't dwell on any mistakes at all. One of my heroes is Mark Manson, who's the guy that wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and I have used his methods. Mantras. He's talking at our conference on the 18th and 19th of June.
Yes, we know. I knew that plug was coming. Yeah.
So but he's one of my sort of business heroes in terms of mindset, not giving a shit about anything, but giving a shit about the stuff that matters, but not sweating the small stuff. Yeah. And ultimately, mistakes that you make, you shouldn't worry about them. You should just move on and learn from them. And that, again, sounds very American. I think probably at the time when I started at Easy Property, 3 days in, I was like, what have I done? What have I done? Everything was just a disaster.
What made you do it?
Good question.
Yeah, I love John Cook. Like, he's one of my
Should I get
original,
him on the podcast?
Yeah, you should. He's one of my original estate agency heroes.
Will he come on, do you think?
If you get me to ask him, then he
can
will.
you ask him?
Yeah, of course I can. Yeah.
Ouch.
No, I don't know.
Ego check number 2.
Can we put that clip with the bit about not having an ego? That would be fantastic.
I'm seeing John on Friday, actually. But yeah, so no, John was the person who I would follow, and like he was the first person to approach me in 2012 about Hatched, and and sort of he was kind of an unofficial coach of mine, an unofficial mentor of mine, and then he said, I'm doing this easy property thing, management takeover, I want you to be part of it. And I was like, I've got to do that. I was obviously at Connell's at the time. That wasn't quite going to plan for various reasons, and which I'm probably not allowed to say, but
oh, come on. You can't let that sort of stuff come out of your
even
mouth.
Now, even the whole management, I'm not friends with all of them. I saw David Plumtree and David Livesey recently, and so I still keep in touch with those guys, but didn't quite go to plan for whatever reason. And I again, just on that one, I often say that it was like I was playing for Plymouth Argyle and got a transfer to Manchester City, and I just didn't realise how big the Connell's juggernaut was. Yeah. I'd come from a tiny little business, which I had a massive ego
for anyone
about.
Listening to this, any of the viewers, basically, they bought Hatched, is that right?
Yeah,
and then
that's right.
You were kind of, I suppose, brought in as part of that.
Yeah. So, and just going into, I remember doing a trademark of Hatched, and Anthony Glasgow said to me, "Why are you doing that?" He said, "We've got a department for that." And I said, "Oh, well, I've just always done that. Like, I had to renew the trademark." He said, "What are you doing? Just pass it over." Like, he was nice about it, but I just didn't realise what had hit me, that there was a department for everything. So I was like rabbit in the headlights. So anyway, I went to Easy Property because of John Cook. Went in there within 3 days, thought, what have I done? Knew it was a culture change, a business model shift. Like, there was everything needed change. It was really difficult. But actually, I learned a lot about B2B, if you like, how to deal with agents and what agents want, what their pain points are, how to, engage with agents. Going on. Me and John used to go on road shows. We used to drive to Harrogate, and then we'd drive to Bristol, and then we'd drive up to Manchester.
So it taught you a big lesson.
Huge lesson it prepared me for EXP like nothing that I
Did
realised.
Did it polarise EXP more as an opportunity because of maybe how different those two?
It gave me the insight of, so again with Easy Property, we were going around recruiting anyone that could fog a mirror, basically. and I remember we did a recruitment event in Rugby with Sean Newman, and I love Sean Newman. He was part of the Easy Property thing, and it totally believed in it, bought into it, and he was great to work with. So we did a recruitment event, 26 people turned up, 19 people signed up, which showed the power of the Easy brand. After 9 months, all 19 people had left, having listed about three instructions between them. And we had Brian Mansell and Sarah Edmondson, the amazing Sarah Edmondson, who we've lost recently. She did all our training. I worked with Sarah very closely for like a year, training all these people that were joining.
They just didn't have the right.
They just didn't. And that shaped my opinion on, you can't have, and 1 in 20 was successful, right? 1 in 20 did.
That goes back to the
job.
risk we talked about earlier,
right? Exactly, the risk, the amount of time you got to put into that person, and so that shaped my opinions on the EXP thing when it came along. I thought, well, I spent a year doing that Easy Property thing. It was a disaster, frankly. Even though we put some of the best minds into it, John Cook, me, Sarah Edmondson, Brian Mansell, we're all working on it. Some of the. Well, I mean, I'd started an online estate agency and sold it. It's the only one to do that, Verona, just to let you know.
Where is it now, though?
Quirky's in next.
Well, it's gone. But it closed down 18 months after I left.
Come on, it's easy pickings, Adam.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. So, I think you've shared something there which is quite special as well, which is you're going to go through tough times.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of people going through tough times at the minute. Let's be honest. It's a challenging environment out there economically and socially. So listen to the advice that you're hearing today, guys. It is gold. And I'm a big fan. You mentioned emotional intelligence. We hear a lot now about artificial intelligence, AI versus EI.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on how either of those are going to be the backbone of your growth going forward?
So I mentioned our approach to growth and strategy. We test all the time. We're always testing something. And at the minute, we've got a number of use cases being tested in AI. I personally use it every day, and most of my team use it every day in some form or other. And I think it excites me and scares me in equal measure, is the truth.
Yeah.
I think given the world and how social media is and the negativity in a lot of social media output at the minute, AI, in my opinion, is like a toddler, and you have to train it like a parent would train the AI to behave in the right way and in a positive way. And as long as there are good guardrails around it, I think it could be transformative in lots of ways. In my goal for the business is that we use AI to replace some of the more basic administrative manual type tasks so that it allows us to hire and retain and pay and reward really great people to do a really brilliant value add job. Will it replace people? No, I don't think it will replace people, but I think it will replace some processes. And we're definitely testing that at the minute. So I think if we weren't, we'd be nuts.
Oh, absolutely. You can't ignore it. It's been rolling and learning. It's winding itself round. It's just going to get even more incredible.
I will caveat that by saying, in my opinion, property is a people business.
Oh, God,
and I don't think it will replace the main role that people play in our industry.
Why?
Because I don't think our consumers are ready for it. And there's a lot of relationship, trust building, nurturing of relationships over a long period of time. And you know, even my kids, my daughter's 20, just bought her first house, and she still needed and wanted that interaction with the agent that she bought it from, the conversation around, what do you think? What's your opinion? Yeah, she does lots of stuff on AI, but she wasn't ready to do that. So I think there's a long way to go. Yes, can we be more efficient? Absolutely. And I want to be, but I don't want it to replace the core, the heart of what this industry is about. Yeah.
Good shout.
Yeah, I think AI is, it's here to stay, obviously. We've been using it quite a lot with the self-management sort of culture that Glenn has been trying to drive, so we record every meeting that we have, every single meeting we record, we upload it into a GPT that we've created, and then I can go into that GPT and say, tell me what's happening in the Cala region. And then GPT will go and search the meeting recordings and transcriptions and give me a summary of what's happening in Cala. Now, I don't need to know what's going on in Cala, but this morning I couldn't attend the meeting. We do daily meetings. We have a daily stand-up, very, very designer, engineering kind of led sprint planning and meetings and stuff.
It's rolling off your tongue.
Yeah. But I wasn't in the meeting because I was travelling up here today, so I can go in and say what was discussed this morning. Now, there's only a 15-minute meeting every morning is what we do. And so I can see what's going on, and if there's any blockers, or I can dive into anything that I need to dive into. So, we're using AI for loads.
That's the efficiency, right? That's where it's so
massively
powerful. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, but we're using it. I mean, I think it's going to replace a lot of people. I think that consensus. You know, if you look at something like an EXP model, you know, I've got 20 staff for 700 agents. I think over the next 2 to 3 years, that could end up with 2,000 agents with 20 staff still.
Yeah.
You know, the
scalability improves massively, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Without increasing your cost base.
Yeah. So I don't think it'll be removing people today. I just think it won't require you to hire people tomorrow.
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
I think so. And I think, the combination of emotionally intelligent agents with artificial intelligence is a powerful vision. Yeah.
And actually, even AI today is becoming more emotionally intelligent.
Really is,
and, you know, the way that I interacted with on a daily basis, it now writes things in my tone of voice. It does. Yeah. So, it's fascinating.
Have you ever gone asked about yourself in there?
I'll tell you this. Ben Madden sent me the God prompt. Have you heard about it?
No.
Phenomenal. So it basically is asking the AI for a brutal assessment of you, and it takes how you interact with AI and things you search and the words you used and whether you use manners when you're talking to it, which I do. I always say please and thank you. And it gives you an assessment. Oh, I did it yesterday, actually.
What's the prompt? Sorry.
Oh, it's 2 prompts. I'll share it with you.
Okay.
Ben shared it with me, and I'll share it with you both. If you genuinely want the honest assessment from your AI.
What? Do you know what? That's a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, it's really cool. I thought it was. I thought it was really interesting and enlightening.
Matt Gigg's a nice guy, you know. Or
it's more brutal than that. Yeah, it says, don't worry about being nice and kind. Be brutal.
Absolutely. What's kind of finishing towards the end? I'm a great believer in mindset. I think the best estate agents, they just have this ability to not overthink, and they have this fundamental desire to do. And that comes from a lot of things, doesn't it? Confidence, knowledge, skill. What would be your number one mindset rule, if you like, if you have one that you operate with, just to share with my viewers?
Oh, I agree with you. Mindset is the number one most important in any industry and anybody being successful at life, just doing life well. And whatever the stories you tell yourself, that will follow through into how you live your life, your behaviors, your actions. So believing you can, as opposed to believing you can't, for me, would always be the starting point. And then you add in things like resilience, and you have to be resilient in this game, because you're not going to get a yes 100% of the time. So you have to be resilient, but you also have to be consistent. And even when things aren't going to plan, trust the process and be consistent with it. It's so hard to answer that question in a snapshot, because but if I was going to say one thing, it's about what you believe in here. And if you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
What dictates that?
So I think there's a whole combination of factors. I think I'm lucky that I was born with a positive mindset. So a positive mindset to start with.
You had quite a few siblings, didn't you?
I have 7 siblings.
And they're not probably, I guess you're all very different.
We're all incredibly different, yeah. So honestly, maybe being the oldest, maybe having a lot of responsibility at a young age, and moving to London when I was in my early 20s. So life experiences builds up your credits in the bank to give you the proof that says, you got this, and whatever happens to you and whatever life throws at you, you can make it through and you can deal with it. So I think experience, as well as, maybe partly genetic. But then once you've created a set of values for yourself and a set of principles by which you live your life, then you reiterate and build on that mindset. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure it answers the question. It's quite a broad question.
But I think it's an individual answer. Your answer is your answer. You can see it. It's authentic. So thank you.
For me, it's everything Verona said, but I think
oh my God, come on.
Yeah, no, I know
what she said.
Boiling it down for me, it's having a why. Yeah. It's having a true.
Tell us about that, because I don't know how many people actually. I don't think many people stop to think about it. So tell me.
I think it's really difficult to find your true why. I've been talking since 2006 to the team, and I still to this day, to change estate agency. That's like a really simple why that I felt was important for me back in 2006, and I didn't know how to change it, but I felt it needed changing. I didn't think it was the right model for the consumer. I've always been in it for the consumer. But then having the why, my other why is very personal. I lost my dad when I was 1, so I never had a dad growing up. So for me, it was, so he died, I don't even know what age he was, like 34, 35, something like that. So I beat him. So I'm like, hooray, yay, I've kind of done that. But from the day I knew that he wasn't around, which wasn't until I was like 8 or 9, the reality of, oh shit, everyone else has got a dad, I haven't, kind of thing. It was kind of in my own mind, from that experience point of view that you talk about, Verona, is I want to make sure that I don't die at 34, frankly, with all my dreams still intact. In other words, I haven't smashed everything out the park, really. And so my mindset is probably shaped by that history of not having that,
Do you think that book resonates with you, the subtle art?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
because you've kind of had that's about as challenging situation as you could face.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And my mum was always a massive worrier. I'd watch her writing lists of shopping lists of how much butter's going to cost and bread and And we weren't from a poor background, and actually, my dad dying gave her a bit of inheritance, so we were okay, but we weren't comfortable. And so mum had to watch the pennies, and so every time I'd walk in the kitchen, she was writing a list of.
But she had that responsibility. She had to wear that responsibility for normally 2 people. So I can imagine that bore heavily on her shoulders. And the responsibility
of me as a 1-year-old, my brother as a 10-day-old when he died. He was 10 days old. So that's
resilience.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think all of those things have shaped my why.
Your mum must be very proud of you, mate.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, all mums are though, aren't they? That's Chris Watkin would say.
Yeah.
The only person that cares about anything is
the one that liked all your initial EXP posts. Your biggest fan.
I don't let her like anything, but I see her stalking me on LinkedIn occasionally. Who's viewed your profile?
Yeah. Brilliant.
Do you know, you've been two fantastic guests to start this journey for me as the Estate Agent Showdown. Obviously, it suggests that we're going to be fighting in different corners, but it really isn't about that. The whole art of this podcast is to give you, the listener, two different perspectives, which I definitely think we got today on a number of areas. One, Verona, I describe that as a hybrid-y kind of giving people the support and the training, the accountability as well, but giving people options.
Yeah.
And I think what Adam, you give people is freedom. In many respects, you're offering freedom and an opportunity to build their own businesses as well in a slightly different way with the model that you've operated. I hope that's a fair, encompassing kind of statement there. But I hope you've enjoyed it.
I have, actually.
Been awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been really nice to have you as guests. So thank you. And thank you so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. And make sure you download, you subscribe, and you follow. We are going to be everywhere. We're going to be bringing in new guests, the kind of people that I know you want to be watching, maybe having a bit more fisticuffs next time. You never know. So anyway, thank you so much for listening or watching, and I'll see you soon.